But let's pull up Chamath's tweet. Of course, the dictator wants to dictate here. All this incredible innovation is being made, and a new hero has been born, Chamath Palihapitiya, a tweet that went viral, over 1.2 million views already. I'll read your tweet for the audience. If you invent a novel drug, you need the government to vet and approve it, FDA, before you can commercialize it. If you invent a new mode of air travel, you need the government to vet and approve it, FAA. I'm just going to edit this down a little bit. If you create new security, you need the government to vet it and approve it, SEC. More generally, when you create things with broad societal impact, positive and negative, the government creates a layer to review and approve it. AI will need such an oversight body. The FDA approval process seems the most credible and adaptable into a framework to understand how a model behaves, and it's counterfactual. Our political leaders need to get in front of this sooner rather than later and create some oversight before the eventual big avoidable mistakes happen and genies are let out of the bottle. Chamath, you really want the government to come in, and then when people build these tools, they have to submit them to the government to approve them. That's what you're saying here. And you want that to start now.
Here's the alternative. The alternative is going to be the debacle that we know as Section 230. So if you try to write a brittle piece of legislation or try to use old legislation to deal with something new, it's not going to do a good job because technology advances way too quickly. And so if you look at the Section 230 example, where have we left ourselves? The politicians have a complete inability to pass a new framework to deal with social media, to deal with misinformation. And so now we're all kind of guessing what a bunch of 70 and 80-year-old Supreme Court justices will do in trying to rewrite technology law when they have to opine on Section 230. So the point of that tweet was to lay the alternatives. There is no world in which this will be unregulated. And so I think the question to ask ourselves is, do we want a chance for a new body? So the FDA is a perfect example why. Even though the FDA commissioner is appointed by the president, this is a quasi-organization. It's still arm's length away. It has subject matter experts that they hire, and they have many pathways to approval. Some pathways take days. Some pathways are months and years. Some pathways are for breakthrough innovations. Some pathways are for devices. So they have a broad spectrum of ways of arbitrating what can be commercialized and what cannot. Otherwise, my prediction is we will have a very brittle law that will not work. It'll be like the Commerce Department and the FTC trying to gerrymander some old piece of legislation. And then what will happen is it'll get escalated to the Supreme Court. And I think they are the last group of people who should be deciding on this incredibly important topic for society. So what I have been advocating our leaders, and I will continue to do so, is don't try to ram this into an existing body. It is so important. It is worth creating a new organization like the FDA and having a framework that allows you to look at a model and look at the counterfactual, judge how good, how important, how disruptive it is, and then release it in the wild appropriately. Otherwise, I think you'll have these chaos GPT things scale infinitely. Because again, as Friedberg said and as Sachs said, you're talking about one person that can create this chaos. Multiply that by every person that is an anarchist or every person that just wants to sow seeds of chaos, and I think it's going to be all avoidable.
I think regulating what software people can write is a near impossible task, number one. I think you can probably put rules and restrictions around commerce, right? That's certainly feasible in terms of how people can monetize. But in terms of writing and utilizing software, it's going to be as challenged as trying to monitor and demand oversight and regulation around how people write and use tools for genome and biology exploration. Certainly, if you want to take a product to market and sell a drug to people that can influence their body, you have to go get that approved. But in terms of doing your work in a lab, it's very difficult. I think the other challenge here is software can be written anywhere. It can be executed anywhere. And so if the US does try to regulate or does try to put the brakes on the development of tools where the US can have kind of a great economic benefit and a great economic interest, there will be advances made elsewhere without a doubt. And those markets and those those places will benefit in an extraordinarily outpaced way. As we just mentioned, there's such extraordinary kind of economic gain to be realized here that if the United States is not leading the world, we are going to be following and we are going to get disrupted. We are going to lose an incredible amount of value and talent. And so any attempt at regulation or slowing down or telling people that they cannot do things when they can easily hop on a plane and go do it elsewhere, I think is fraught with peril.
So you don't agree with regulation. Sachs, are you on board with the Chamath plan or are you on board with the Freeberg plan?
I'll say, I think just like with computer hacking, it's illegal to break into someone else's computer. It is illegal to steal someone's personal information. There are laws that are absolutely simple and obvious and no nonsense laws. Those
it's
laws
not illegal
need to be implemented.
Get rid of 100,000 jobs by making a piece of software, though.
That's right. And so I think trying to intentionalize how we do things versus intentionalizing the things that we want to prohibit happening as an outcome. We can certainly try and prohibit the things that we want to happen as an outcome and pass laws and institute governing bodies with authority to oversee those laws with respect to things like stealing data.
But you can jump on a plane and go do it in Mexico, Canada, or whatever region you get to. Sachs, where do you stand on this debate?
I'm saying like there are ways to protect people. There's ways to protect society about passing laws that make it illegal to do things as the output, as the outcome.
What law do you pass on Chaos GPT?
Explain Chaos GPT. Give an example, please.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about it real quick?
It's a recursive agent that basically is trying to destroy itself.
Trying to destroy humanity.
Yeah, but I guess by first becoming all powerful and destroying humanity and then destroying itself.
Yeah, it's a tongue-in-cheek auto GPT.
But it's not a tongue-in-cheek auto GPT.
Well, the guy that created it, put it out there and said, like, he's trying to show everyone, to your point, what intentionality could arise here, which is negative intentionality.
I think it's very naive for anybody to think that this is not equivalent to something that could cause harm to you. So, for example, if the prompt is, hey, here is a security leak that we figured out in Windows, and so why don't you exploit it? So look, a hacker now has to be very technical. Today, with these auto GPTs, a hacker does not need to be technical at all. Exploit the 0-day exploit in Windows, hack into this plane and bring it down. Oh, okay, the GPT will do it. So who's going to tell you that those things are not allowed? Who's going to actually vet that wasn't allowed to be released in the wild? So for example, if you worked with Amazon and Google and Microsoft and said, you're going to have to run these things in a sandbox and we're going to have to observe the output before we allow it to run on actual bare metal in the wild, again, that seems like a reasonable thing. And it's super naive for people to think it's a free market, so we should just be able to do what we want. This will end badly quickly. And when the first plane goes down and when the first fucking thing gets blown up, all of you guys will be like, oh, sorry.
Sachs, pretty compelling example here by Chamath. Somebody puts out into the wild, Chaos GPT, you can go do a Google search for it and says, hey, what are the vulnerabilities to the electrical grid? Compile those and automate a series of attacks and write some code to probe those and success in this mission, you get 100 points and stars every time you do this.
It's such a beautiful example, but it's even more nefarious. It is, hey, this is an enemy that's trying to hack our system, so you need to hack theirs and bring it down. Like you can easily trick these GPTs, right?
Yes, they have no judgment.
They have no judgment. And as you said, they're ruthless in getting to the outcome.
Right.
So why do we think all of a sudden this is not going to happen?
I mean, it's literally the science fiction example. You say, hey, listen, make sure no humans get cancer. And they're like, okay, well, the logical way to make sure no humans get cancer is to kill all the humans.
But Chamath, can you just address the point? So what do you think you're regulating? Are you regulating the code that people are allowed to write?
If you look at the FDA, no, you're allowed to make any chemical drug you want. But if you want to commercialize it, you need to run a series of trials with highly qualified measurable data, and you submit it to like-minded experts that are trained as you are to evaluate the viability of that. And there are pathways that allow you to get that done in days under emergency use, and then there are pathways that can take years, depending on how gargantuan the task is at hand. And all I'm suggesting is having some amount of oversight is not bad in this specific example.